I'm Claire Monroe, 30 years old, and I thought our family reunion would be a day to remember. I poured my heart into planning it, covering every cost to honor my grandparents. But my brother stood up, venom in his voice, accusing me of betraying the family. Then my parents' words cut deeper. This family would have been better off without you. The room froze. My chest tightened. I'd given them everything, money, time, loyalty, yet they turned on me. Then my grandmother rose, her voice sharp, revealing a truth that shattered everyone. What she said changed it all, exposing lies I never saw coming. I looked them in the eyes and said, "No." That moment defined me. What did she reveal? Why did I walk away? Stay tuned to uncover the betrayal that tore us apart. Has family ever turned on you? Drop your story in the comments. Growing up in a Cedarfield suburb, I always carried the weight of being the eldest. As Claire Monroe, I was 8 years older than my brother Ethan Monroe, and that gap shaped our lives. From the time he was 10, I helped him with math homework, untangling fractions while he fidgeted, annoyed. When he got his first car at 16, I paid $300 for a new alternator after he left it dead in a parking lot. Being the big sister meant fixing his messes, even when he rolled his eyes and called me bossy. I thought it was just sibling rivalry, but the resentment ran deeper than I realized. Mom, Diane Monroe, and Dad, Robert Monroe, never saw Ethan's faults. To them, he was the sensitive one, the golden child who needed coddling. When I graduated high school with honors, Mom barely glanced at my certificate, too busy praising Ethan's mediocre soccer game. Dad, who worked long hours in logistics, would pat Ethan's shoulder, saying, "You've got potential, kid," while my straight A report cards gathered dust. Their favoritism stung, but I swallowed it. Believing family came first. I worked part-time jobs through college, scraping by to help with household bills, while Ethan got new sneakers and gaming consoles without lifting a finger. Grandma Margaret Monroe and Grandpa Walter Monroe, who lived just a mile away, were my refuge. They'd invite me over for lemonade and chess, their small house filled with warmth. Grandma Margaret would beam, saying, "Claire, you're going places." When I shared my dream of becoming an architect, Grandpa Walter, quieter but kind, would nod and add, "You've got a good head on your shoulders." Their pride in me felt like a lifeline, especially when Mom dismissed my college acceptance letter as nothing special, while later fawning over Ethan's community college application. They saw me in a way my parents never did. After college, I landed a job as a project manager at a Cedarfield architecture firm. The pay was solid enough to cover my rent and then some, but family expectations never stopped. 4 years ago, when Ethan started college, I began covering his expenses. His tuition, $20,000 a year, came out of my savings. I signed the lease for his off-campus apartment, paying $800 a month. I even gave him a credit card for emergencies, though he used it for late-night pizza runs and concert tickets. Mom and Dad claimed they were stretched thin, so I stepped up, thinking it was my duty. Ethan never said thank you. Instead, he'd smirk and say, "Must be nice playing big shot with your fancy job." His words cut, but I brushed them off, hoping he'd grow out of it. Ethan's jealousy grew with my success. At 22, a senior in college working part-time at a cafe, he couldn't stand that I'd built a life he hadn't. When I bought a modest condo last year, he scoffed. "Who needs that much space? Showing off again?" At family dinners, he'd jab at my work, calling my projects overpriced blueprints, or mocking my long hours as trying to be some corporate hotshot. Mom would laugh it off, saying, "Oh, Ethan's just teasing," while Dad nodded along, never correcting him. I'd bite my tongue, not wanting to start a fight, but each comment chipped away at me. Grandma Margaret noticed. One afternoon, while we sorted through her old photo albums, she squeezed my hand and said, "Don't let their nonsense dim your light, Claire." Grandpa Walter, tinkering with a radio nearby, looked up and added, "You're doing right by them, even if they don't see it." Their words kept me going. But Ethan's bitterness and my parents' bias built a wall between us. I kept giving money, time, patience, because that's what family does. Or so I thought. Months before the reunion, I poured my heart into making it perfect. I wanted to honor Grandma Margaret and Grandpa Walter's 60th wedding anniversary with a day they'd never forget. I booked Lakewood Hall in Cedarfield, Illinois, a charming spot with space for 50 guests. For $5,000, I secured the hall complete with a lakeside view. I spent hours picking a menu: roast chicken, grilled vegetables, and chocolate cake, their favorites. I hired a local photographer, paying $800 to capture every smile. My fiancé, Ryan Brooks, helped me negotiate with vendors, while my best friend, Monica Lane, designed the invitations. Their support kept me grounded even when doubts crept in about pulling it off. Ethan, at 22 and a college senior, didn't share my excitement. Over dinner one night, I shared my plans, hoping he'd be proud. Instead, he smirked. "What's with the big show, Claire? Gotta flaunt your money?" His words stung, but Mom jumped in. "Ethan's just stressed from school." Dad nodded. "Let him be, Claire. He's got enough on his plate." Their defense of him, as always, left a bitter taste. I forced a smile, swallowing the hurt, determined to make the day special despite his attitude. Grandma Margaret sensed my stress. During a visit to her house, she pulled me aside while we sorted linens for the event. "You're doing something beautiful, Claire," she said, her eyes warm. "Don't let anyone dim that." Grandpa Walter, reading his newspaper, looked up and gave a firm nod. Their encouragement fueled me, reminding me why I was doing this. I wanted to give them a day of joy, a rare moment where family meant something more than tension. The reunion day arrived with bright skies over Lakewood Hall. I wore a pale blue dress, the kind Grandma always said made my eyes shine. The tables were draped in white linens, silver cutlery gleaming. Every flower arrangement matched the family's favorite: white lilies and soft pink roses. As the guests arrived, laughter filled the hall. I felt proud. For once, everyone seemed happy, until I saw Ethan walk in, late as usual. He wore jeans and a wrinkled shirt, holding a cheap bottle of wine like an afterthought. He didn't greet me. He went straight to Mom and Dad, grinning, already performing for them. Mom kissed his cheek and whispered something that made them both laugh. I pretended not to notice, focusing on the caterers. My heart pounded as the event began. Speeches, photos, and the warmth of family. Grandma and Grandpa looked radiant at the center table. After dinner, I stood to give a toast. My hands trembled slightly as I raised my glass. "To Grandma Margaret and Grandpa Walter," I said. 60 years of love, patience, and faith. You've taught us all what it means to be family." Applause followed, polite, heartfelt. I turned to them, my eyes stinging with gratitude. That was the moment I'd been waiting for. Then Ethan stood. His voice was loud, sarcastic. "Yeah, to family. The same family where some people think they're better than everyone else because they've got a fancy job and money to throw around." The laughter in the room faltered. I froze, glass still raised. He smirked. "Come on, Claire. You really think paying for all this makes you some kind of saint? You're just buying everyone's approval." Mom gasped softly but didn't say a word. Dad stared at the table. The guests looked at each other uncomfortably. My heart raced, my hands shaking now for a different reason. "Ethan," I said quietly, "that's enough." He sneered. "What, can't handle the truth? You've been parading around like you're perfect since college. You think we don't notice the way you talk down to us?" I blinked, stunned. "Talk down? I've done nothing but help you. I paid your tuition, your rent—" "Exactly," he interrupted, his tone rising. "You love reminding everyone how generous you are. Makes you feel powerful, doesn't it?" The silence was suffocating. Grandma Margaret's eyes narrowed, but she didn't speak. I could feel tears building, but I swallowed them down. Dad finally muttered, "Ethan, sit down." But Ethan ignored him. "You think you're better than us, Claire. You always have." That's when Mom said it. Her voice was cold, tired. "He's not wrong. Maybe if you didn't act like the rest of us were beneath you, things would be easier." It was as if the floor disappeared beneath me. I stared at her. "What?" She didn't meet my eyes. "You always have to be in control. You plan everything, pay for everything. Make sure everyone knows how much you've sacrificed. Maybe we didn't ask for your help." The words hit harder than any slap. "I did it for family," I whispered. Mom crossed her arms. "Maybe you did it for yourself." I felt my throat close up. My own mother, the woman I'd tried so hard to please, now twisted everything I'd done into selfishness. Ethan smirked, satisfied. See, told you. I looked at Dad, desperate for some kind of defense. But he just sighed. Maybe your mom's right. You've been trying to run this family like it's your office. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Every sacrifice, every hour, every dollar, all reduced to control. The room spun. I muttered something about needing air and stumbled toward the door. Behind me, I heard whispers. Someone tried to stop me, but I kept walking until I reached the edge of the lake. The calm water reflected the sky, a cruel contrast to the chaos inside me. I clutched the railing, forcing myself not to cry. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Claire. Grandma Margaret's voice. I turned. Her expression was calm, but her eyes burned with fury. Not at me. Don't you dare let their bitterness define you, she said softly. They've forgotten who you are. I shook my head. They hate me, Grandma. I tried everything. She stepped closer. No, they hate themselves for needing you. That broke me. Tears finally spilled, quiet and raw. Grandma sighed, glancing back toward the hall. It's time they learned the truth. Come with me. Confused, I followed her back inside. Everyone was still gathered, the tension thick as fog. Grandma walked to the center of the room, her cane tapping the floor with each step. She raised her voice, strong, commanding. Enough. Every head turned. She looked directly at Mom and Dad. You should be ashamed. Mom frowned. Mother, please, don't interrupt me, Grandma snapped. You've spent years belittling the only child who's ever lifted a finger for this family. Do you know how this hall got paid for? Mom hesitated. Claire said No, Grandma cut in. I mean before that. Do you know why she could afford it? Dad looked confused. Because she has a good job. Grandma shook her head slowly. Because 20 years ago, when your business failed, it wasn't a bank loan that saved your house. It was Walter's pension fund, and who paid it back quietly, every month for 6 years. The room was dead silent. Mom blinked. What are you talking about? Grandma pointed at me. Her. Claire paid it back. Without ever telling you, she's been carrying this family's burden since she was 22. And what has she gotten in return? Mockery. Gasps filled the room. Ethan's face went pale. Mom's lips trembled. Dad lowered his gaze, shame creeping into his expression. Grandma's voice trembled, but her words were steady. You've mistaken humility for arrogance, generosity for control. You should be thanking her, not tearing her apart. I stood frozen, unable to move, my breath shaky. Grandpa Walter, who had been silent the entire evening, finally spoke. His voice was gravelly but clear. Claire, your grandmother's right. We see you. Always have. The silence after Grandpa Walter's words stretched across the hall like a heavy curtain. For a moment, no one moved. Even the music had stopped. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. Ethan's smirk had vanished. He stood there, pale and small, no trace of his earlier confidence. Mom's face flushed with embarrassment. Dad avoided everyone's gaze, pretending to straighten his tie. Grandma turned toward me and reached out her trembling hand. Come here, dear. I hesitated, but then I walked to her side. Her grip was steady, strong despite her age. You don't owe anyone here an apology, she said, her voice clear. You've spent your life making sacrifices for this family, and they were too blind to see it. Mom finally spoke, her tone sharp. You're twisting things, Mother. We never asked her to pay us back. Grandma's eyes narrowed. No, you didn't ask. You just took, and you kept taking. Gasps rippled through the room again. Dad looked like he wanted to disappear. Ethan's hands fidgeted at his sides, his jaw clenching and unclenching. I didn't know, he muttered, eyes darting between us. I didn't know she paid all that money back. I looked at him, my brother, the boy I'd once protected from every mistake, and felt nothing but exhaustion. You never asked, I said quietly. You just assumed I was showing off. He flinched. Grandma glanced at him, disappointment in every line of her face. You've been spoiled by her love, Ethan, and you've mistaken kindness for weakness. The weight of her words settled in the air. A few relatives whispered softly, pretending not to watch. But everyone's attention was fixed on us. The truth had cracked open years of resentment like a window in a sealed room. Grandma turned to Mom again. You taught him that, you know. You taught both your children that affection has to be earned, that one is never enough unless they give everything. Mom's face twisted, defensive. That's not fair. Neither is cruelty disguised as discipline, Grandma replied. Dad finally stood. His shoulders slumped as he faced me. Claire, I didn't know. I didn't realize— Yes, you did, Grandma interrupted again. You just chose not to see it. He looked like someone had punched the air out of him. I thought we were teaching her independence. You taught her isolation, Grandma said, voice breaking slightly. You taught her that love has conditions. The silence afterward was suffocating. I swallowed hard, trying to find my voice. Grandma, it's okay. You don't have to— She turned sharply to me. No, Claire. You've protected them long enough. You've been the backbone of this family since you were a child. It's time they carry their own weight. The tension in the room cracked, replaced by a wave of quiet murmurs. My aunt dabbed her eyes with a napkin. One of the cousins looked down, ashamed. The truth had rearranged the entire room. Ethan finally spoke again, voice trembling. Claire, I'm sorry, I didn't answer right away. The apology sounded thin, like paper over a wound too deep to cover. But I saw the sincerity flicker in his eyes, the first trace of self-awareness I'd ever seen in him. Mom crossed her arms, defensive to the end. We don't need to turn this into a spectacle. Grandma stared at her coldly. It already was a spectacle. You just didn't expect to be the ones exposed. I felt my chest tighten, a strange mixture of pain and relief. For the first time, someone had stood up for me. For years, I'd done everything to earn their approval, but it had taken Grandma's truth to show me I didn't need it. I turned to her. Thank you, I whispered. She smiled faintly. Don't thank me. Just promise me one thing, that you'll stop shrinking to make them comfortable. Her words sank deep, sharper than any lecture. I nodded, unable to speak. Grandpa cleared his throat. Dinner's getting cold, he muttered, his way of ending the confrontation with a shred of dignity. But even he looked proud. Slowly, people began to sit down again, though the warmth was gone. The family reunion had turned into something else entirely, a reckoning. Mom stayed standing for a moment longer, eyes glistening with something I couldn't name. Guilt, maybe, or the first flicker of regret. Then she sat without another word. Grandma leaned closer to me. You've done your part, Claire. Now it's time to let life do the rest. I smiled weakly. I just wanted them to be proud of me. They are, she said softly. They just don't know how to show it. That night, when the last guests had left and the hall was nearly empty, I stood by the door, looking at the remnants of the evening. Half-eaten cake, empty glasses, and wilting flowers. Ethan approached, hands shoved in his pockets. Hey, he said quietly. I turned. Hey, he shifted uncomfortably. I meant what I said earlier. I'm sorry. I was jealous. You worked hard for everything you have, and He trailed off. I wanted to believe it came easy for you, I sighed. Nothing ever did. He nodded, eyes downcast. I know that now. We stood there for a while. The silence between us no longer heavy, just honest. As he left, Grandma's words echoed in my head. Stop shrinking to make them comfortable. For the first time in years, I felt taller. The next morning, sunlight streamed through my window at the Lakewood Inn, where I'd stayed after the reunion. My phone buzzed nonstop, missed calls, unread messages, and a few apologies from family members who had stayed silent the night before. I sat up slowly, my mind still replaying Grandma's words. The echoes of last night's confrontation had burned away something inside me, not my love for them, but the need for their approval. I scrolled through my phone. Ethan had texted again, "Can we talk before you leave?" I hesitated, then replied, "Meet me by the lake in an hour." When I stepped outside, the morning air was crisp, the water glistening under soft sunlight. The same lake where I'd cried the night before now felt calm, almost forgiving. Ethan was already there, leaning against the railing, holding 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to me without a word. We stood in silence for a moment, the birdsong breaking the stillness. He finally spoke. "I've been thinking about everything Grandma said. About you." I looked at him cautiously. He sighed. "She was right. You did everything for us, and we treated you like a problem instead of a person. I'm not sure how to make that right." I took a sip of coffee. "You start by meaning what you say." He nodded. "I do." We watched the water ripple in the wind. "You know," he continued, "I used to think you had it easy. That you just figured life out. But now I get it. You worked twice as hard just to be treated half as well." I didn't respond. Sometimes silence said more. He turned toward me. "I'm gonna fix things with Mom and Dad. I can't promise they'll change overnight, but I'm done pretending you're the problem." That hit me harder than I expected. "Thanks," I said softly. He gave a half smile. "I'm still your annoying brother, though." I couldn't help but laugh. That part's permanent. For the first time in years, our laughter felt real. No bitterness, no competition, just two siblings trying to find their way back to each other. As I headed back to my car later, I saw Grandma sitting on a bench near the garden. She wore her favorite cardigan, the one with the small rose-shaped buttons. "Leaving already?" she asked, smiling. I nodded. "Work tomorrow." "Can't stay long." She patted the space beside her. "Sit for a minute." I sat. The scent of roses drifted in from the nearby hedge. She studied me quietly. "You look lighter," she said. "I feel lighter," I admitted. "It's strange. I thought last night would break me. Instead, it feels like the first time I can actually breathe." "That's what truth does," she said. "It hurts before it heals." I smiled faintly. "You really waited 20 years to tell them about the pension?" She chuckled softly. "Walter and I agreed we'd never bring it up. But last night, watching them tear you apart, I couldn't stay quiet anymore." I shook my head in disbelief. "You shouldn't have had to defend me." "Maybe not," she said. "But sometimes silence does more harm than words. You've carried the weight long enough." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. "Your grandfather and I wanted you to have this." I unfolded it. A check. I looked up, startled. "Grandma, no," she raised her hand. "Before you say anything, listen. That money isn't repayment. It's acknowledgement for all the times you gave when no one else did." My throat tightened. "I can't take this." "You will," she said firmly. "Not because you need it, but because we need to give it." I laughed softly through the tears forming in my eyes. "You always get the last word, don't you?" "Of course," she said, eyes twinkling. "I'm your grandmother." We sat there for a while, watching the lake shimmer. Before I left, she squeezed my hand. "Remember, Claire, family isn't who you're born to. It's who stands with you when everything falls apart." I nodded, committing every word to memory. As I drove away from Lakewood Hall, the town growing smaller in my rearview mirror, I felt something shift inside me. A quiet certainty that I was finally free from the invisible chains of expectation. For years, I'd been living for others, giving, fixing, managing, hoping it would make me worthy of love. But love isn't something you earn. It's something you choose to give and allow yourself to receive. By the time I reached the highway, my tears had dried. I turned on the radio, the morning sunlight flooding through the windshield, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled without hesitation. That night, back in the city, I placed Grandma's folded note on my dresser. It wasn't about the money. It was about what it meant. I see you. And maybe that was all I'd ever needed. I sat by the window, watching the skyline glow, and whispered quietly to myself. It's my turn now. Then, for the first time in years, I slept peacefully.